Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. This is the football media day, and the kickoff luncheon always kind of marks the beginning of the next year. I want to look back a little bit, as I assume most of your questions will as well. But first of all, I want to thank you all for what you do, for your coverage of Penn State, and on behalf of over 800 student athletes, the ability to kind of get what they do out there to the public, and obviously we've got a huge fan base that is very thirsty and hungry for information about those student athletes and what they do and how they do it every day, and you all obviously are a huge part of that. So thank you. All in all, I think we had a really good year going into year four. Completing year four, going into year five. For me, you all know that I'm not satisfied. I always think that we can do better, whether it's a top 15 finish in the Learfield Directors Cup, and really think that we fairly easily ought to be top 10, if not top 5, if not knocking on the door of winning the darn thing. But you look across what we did competitively, and I think that speaks for itself. What probably stands out is the Fiesta Bowl win for our football program. Obviously, men's basketball winning the NIT, and then Cale Sanderson and wrestling and the national championship. Our volleyball program knocking on the door of the national championship. Now, obviously, the national championship has become their standard, so that can obviously get flipped as maybe falling short in terms of our standards. But being there is quite an accomplishment. And I could go on and on about what's going on competitively there. But if you look at the other pieces, from an academic standpoint, we continue to set records. Really proud of that, proud of the effort, proud of the investment on behalf of our donors that has gone into that, and then obviously the results. And then from a fundraising standpoint, we set an annual fund record this year. We've made great progress, and I can talk in more detail about this, but we've made great progress from a fundraising standpoint for Lash and the various phases there. And I think in the last 6 months, we've made huge progress in the facilities master plan and the phase one. The phase one priorities, and you'll start to see some really market progress there. So very happy, very pleased with the momentum that we have there, and looking forward to 18-19 and year 5 for me.
Can you give us details on the Lash fundraising and maybe what the next steps are in improving the building?
Yeah, we've raised over 25 million, or close to 25 million, in the course of the last about 4 years. We've over 7 million of that has been in this last year. The phase we're in right now are the position meeting rooms. Those are finishing up, I think, before we open camp here. So obviously, very soon. And then I think the players' lounge, the players' area is probably next, with some second floor projects to follow after that. But the fundraising has got some good momentum, and feel very good about
How far is that building away from where it needs to be competitive with everybody else in the nation, or is that just an ongoing? You always have to upgrade and that sort of thing.
Well, I think it certainly is an ongoing thing. If you look around the country, we're not trying to copy what anybody else is doing, but we're certainly trying to tell our story in the best way, and to provide our current student athletes with the space necessary, the kinds of investment necessary for them to study, compete, and train every day. But I think, if we get through those phases that I talked about, we'll be in a really good position. I think what we've done has been very tasteful, very Penn State. It tells our story. We've got such a great story of history and tradition of success, both on the field and off, that our building needs to tell that story as a reminder to our students every day who walk in that building, as well as to those who might consider to come to Penn State. Make sure they understand what they're coming to.
Sandy, where are season football tickets at, and are you satisfied with them?
We have met our cap on season tickets. I believe that we are either at or sold out for on an individual game basis for four or five of our home. It's five. It's four with tickets available for the first two non-con plus Maryland. I'm never satisfied.
Never satisfied.
But it's been obviously a great response from our fan base. It's going to be an incredible environment, as it always is, in Beaver Stadium this fall. And our fans are showing their appreciation for what our student athletes are doing, both on and off the field. I believe all of that plays a role in this fan base, this community's appreciation and support of our football program.
Maybe there was a report this morning that Penn State and Temple are in negotiations for a two-game series, 26 and 27. What are your thoughts about that? Do you have any comment on that?
Sure, we've been talking to them, as we have a lot of people, to round out our schedule.
Who would you categorize the negotiations are? Beginning, middle, wrapping up?
Conversations. They're all conversations until they're solidified.
Sandy, what are maybe some of the challenges of balancing how much you spend on football facilities versus what's needed? I mean, is there a danger
Versus
of what's needed? Is there a danger of extravagance, I guess, versus a baseline of what you need to compete at this level?
I believe that's exactly what we're doing. I don't think we're doing anything extravagant. I think what we're doing is creating really high quality space for training, educating, teaching, learning, and competing. And I think you layer on top of that a little bit of tell our story, which I believe very strongly in, not only for our current student athletes. Again, you need to remind them, they need to understand. They walk a little taller when they walk into a building. All of our student athletes walk into the Morgan Academic Center, and even subconsciously, they know their university has invested in them and invested in their academic success and their endeavors from an academic standpoint. Same is true of the Lash Building for our football student athletes. Same is true of Panther Stadium for lacrosse that's just finishing up right now. They whether it's conscious or subconscious, they have this feeling that their university has invested in their success. To tell the story, the history, tradition is a very important part of that. I don't believe that we're doing anything that is of extravagance, and that will always be kind of our way.
Andy, back when you guys were dealing with Pat Chambers' contract extension, you had mentioned that your contract obviously is getting closer to the finish line. Are there any progress or updates there in terms of your future with Penn State? Obviously, future is probably not the right way to put it, but have you made any? Are you continuing contract talks? Has anything been done there?
Yeah, we absolutely are. I'll be honest, it's not. I'm going to continue to be the athletic director at Penn State. It's not something I worry about. My contract is up a year from now, and I certainly want to make sure there's a resolution to that before then. But it's not my top priority. Dr. Barron does continue to talk to me about it, and there are just some phases that we have to work through. But I don't think there are any issues there.
Certainly with legalized gambling in the state of Pennsylvania, we'll see kind of what happens with that. But what is Penn State's stance on that as a whole in terms of where it ends up and concerns that you guys might have?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, from an integrity of the game standpoint and any additional pressure that might be put on student athletes or staff members. But I'm particularly worried about student athletes because of the age group and experience that might surround that. I don't want to put any more pressure on them than already is. For us to say that legalized gambling adds this whole new layer, I think is maybe a little bit misleading. It's always been there. There's always been either illegal or legal gambling in another state. So we've always been pretty diligent about our education of student athletes. I think this adds another layer to it. So it probably does. There is some incremental education, some incremental structure that we need to put around it. Frankly, I'd prefer as a state that we not. But that's above my pay grade, and so whatever it ends up being, we'll work with it, and we'll make sure that our student athletes and staff are well equipped, as they always have had to need to be. Yeah, the sales in the club seats in both Beaver Stadium and Pagula have gone very well. Probably most importantly, what's gone really well is lack of problems or incidents around it. So we feel very good about that. I think, as I stated at the time, the incremental revenue from the actual sale was not what was most important to us. It was the value of the seat, that this was an amenity that came with it. So I actually don't know the incremental revenue that would have come from that. I also stated at the time, and there's been no shift or change in that. That Penn State really has no interest in extending that to the more public portions of our venues. So there's really been no further conversations about it.
Sandy?
If our major issue or our major priority was the value on a club seat or a premium seat, then it isn't about the revenue that necessarily that would accrue. And I think when you're on a college campus and you're interfacing a lot with a population that is primarily underage, there's some real perceptual conundrums that go with that.
Sandy, are you still open to having another concert or concerts at the stadium or other outside events such as hockey?
Yeah, we absolutely are, and I've said that from the beginning. But it's also not like we're gonna throw our hat in the ring for every single thing that's out there. It's got to fit for us. It's got to be right for our community. It's got to be right for our facility. It's got to check all the boxes. But we are absolutely looking for, seeking out. Doesn't mean it's going to be every year. And again, it's not every event isn't going to fit our needs or our desires.
Yesterday, James was asked about Penn State's Friday night game at Illinois. He's not a fan of a Friday night game. He said that's for high school football, short prep time. He's just very clearly not in favor of it. What are those conversations like? Does he vent to you? Do you agree with him? And is that just kind of, you just goes with the territory?
Yeah, I mean, if I were a head football coach, I wouldn't like it either. So I certainly understand and believe that his points are valid. As with everything else, there's a big picture that all has to fit into. Remember that Penn State, when asked by the Big Ten, indicated that we weren't interested in playing a Friday night game or a weeknight game at home. That we would consider, on an occasion, a day game, a Friday game on the Friday after Thanksgiving, but that was it. And as a conference, each of us were asked where we stood and what we wanted to participate in. We did agree that we would do one on the road or that we would be available to do one on the road. And that's about the betterment of the conference holistically. That's about our television package. And I can certainly agree with and understand James's concerns, and at the same time understand and agree with the bigger picture from a conference standpoint.
Sandy, there are two major milestones coming up. Russ Rose's 40th season, 25 years of varsity women's soccer. How important is it to kind of recognize those milestones and the trajectory of both of those programs over the years?
Well, I mean, you talk about traits of high-performance teams and organizations and communities, and one of those traits is to celebrate. And in Russ Rose and his 40 years as our head coach in our volleyball program, certainly considered the premier program in the Big Ten, and obviously one of the premier programs across the country. 7 national Russ and Penn State women's volleyball, 7 national champions, none better. You think about, as educators, all the young women who Russ and his staffs over 40 years have influenced, and that's quite a legacy. So what a great opportunity and moment to celebrate this fall with Russ, and then 25 years of Penn State women's soccer, the preeminent. The premier women's soccer program in this conference, and what a great history and legacy, and led at this point by Erica Dombach, and again one of the premier coaches in the country, having won that national championship a couple of years ago. So we're looking forward to both of those, to celebrating the program as it relates to women's soccer, celebrating Russ Rose as it relates to volleyball, and then all of those connections that get pulled in with an individual and with a program, and all the lives that have been impacted and changed, because again, that's what we're really all about.
Sandy, what more can be done by your department to increase the attendance at men's basketball games?
Well, I think thanks to Pat Chambers and the guys, they did the most important thing this last year, which is put a really exciting team on the court. You saw, and I think probably our last 4. I may be off by one way or the other, but I think the last 4 home games, you saw the crowds. You saw people show up. And I think you all know, I think I said it at the press conference we had in April, I had a perception, I had a feeling, I had a viewpoint of the BJC that we needed to do something structurally to make it more intimate. Well, those last games completely changed my mind about that. We put 10,000 people in the BJC, and it is a rockin' place. So Pat's got to do his part, and he absolutely is, in terms of the quality and the nature and the excitement and the young men that connect with our community on the court. And then we've got to do it from a marketing standpoint. But I don't think it has anything to do with the structure of the seats.
So, getting back to other kind of games that people see, you guys were talking to international champions about hosting under the big houses.
Yes, we have.
Is there future interest in hosting events?
We will continue to talk to them. I think that would be a great event to have in Beaver Stadium.
You took care of 2 very high-profile things in the last year or so in terms of extending James and then Pat Chambers. What are the biggest things on your plate now? Are there things that you can tell us about that maybe?
Yeah, I think that they've. They're the same things that I walked in the door pushing on. Extending Pat, extending James. Those are tactical pieces of the big picture. We are so fortunate across the board in our 31 programs to have what I consider to be amongst the best coaches in the country, and it needs to stay that way. We need to make sure that our great people feel good about what they're doing. but it's that bigger picture of providing student athletes with everything they need for success, preparing them for a lifetime of impact. And it's the facilities piece. It's the again, making sure we've got the right people in the right places that believe in our mission, vision, and values, and that can continue to feed and maintain an incredible culture that we have around success and our definition of success. It's not just winning in the competitive arena. It's I've already said it, but I am so proud of the academic achievements of our student athletes. And that doesn't just happen. It doesn't just happen because you recruit smart kids, which our coaches and our university are doing, but then you put them in the right environment when they get there. You hold them accountable when they maybe stray a little bit. Again, we're talking about 17 to 22-year-olds. It happens. And so it's not that it happens, it's how we react, how they react. We hold them accountable, and then we move along our way. So it's continuing to do that. There are big pieces of it. There's the fundraising piece of it. There's the facilities master plan piece of it. There's the assessing personnel, making sure we've got the right people, making sure we're doing the very, very best we can. Because again, I think we're really good. I think we can be a lot better. I think we can be a lot better on the fields, courts, pools. I think we can be a lot better in the classroom. I think we can be more effective in our partnerships. It's about getting better every day.
In terms of wrestling and the BJC duel, you guys have had a lot of success with that. I know Kel seems to be pretty adamant about only wanting to do that once a year. Has anything changed with that in terms of having them do that more often, or do you want to keep that at a one per year kind of thing?
We continue to assess that. It's that balance of Rec Hall is such an incredible environment. It's a great advantage for our wrestling program, but it's also a relatively limited seating capacity, and we'd like more of our own folks to have the opportunity to witness live Penn State wrestling. So that's one of the objectives that the BJC event meets. And could we do two? Yes. We'd want to make sure that we have the quality opponent to do it. So we continue to talk about it, look at it.